Okay, so I used to write for Ned Sherrin on Loose Ends on Radio 4.
Right.
Before Clive Anderson. It's an art show on Radio 4 for anyone who doesn't know it. And there used to be a sort of topical monologue, a bit like Graham Norton does at the top of his show. And I just started writing it. I bumped into the producer in the lift and I said, look, I do comedy. And they gave me a go, and I did it for about a year or something. And it would just be topical comedy. And at the same time, someone from my daughter's school was running a young writers or a new writers group in Watford, Castlebury Park, in the cafe there, and said, would you come and give a talk about, they have various people coming and talking about writing jokes. And I was saying to my wife, she was saying, yeah, go and do it. I was saying, oh my God, I don't know the science of writing jokes. I noticed this week there's an MA you can do on writing comedy. How would you do that? It's virtually impossible to put that magic down. But I'm sure there are academics and much more seasoned writers than me who know how to describe what they're doing. But I thought, I can't go there and to be the blind leading the blind. But then I just went there and did what I was saying you about, just talking about non sequiturs, the rule of three, about, all I could say, and even now I don't know what you'd write. If you're writing topical jokes, you think about the subject matter, just cast that net out wide in your mind. Cast it out. And, what do we know about David Beckham? He's this, this, and this. And what do we know about Boris Johnson, the parties? Oh, it's some really lovely, insightful stuff about parties. Wrote this stuff for Ned Sherrin, and in the Watford Observer, it got sort of mentioned that I held this bloody writer's workshop. I'm embarrassed to call it a workshop. And Woodmanstern Cards, who are a massive card company in the sort of fine art cards, got me in. And this is like 2005. And they said there's a growing demand for sort of slightly funnier, more, their words were more middle-class range than your Clinton cards, just endless jokes about getting older, or open the card and it's Del Boy going, Kushti or something.
Yeah.
And so slightly more, and I think things like Scribbler were coming up at that time, and just a sort of slightly funnier thing. And so I started writing this stuff, which was called Drama Queen, which was slightly nicked, I think, by Hallmark cards off me, which is black and white.
Bastards.
Yeah, black and white pictures from theatrical magazines. There's loads of them of people doing very sort of melodramatic and putting underneath. I would put a sort of comedy line as if it came from the film, and then the extra joke is the name of the film underneath. So you had sort of a lovely black and white image, beautiful pictures of actors working. Then this, usually a very contemporary, funny line, which could only be 21st century. And then an added joke, the name of the film, which would often, it just gave you a lot of options. And it sort of went like wildfire, and it was wonderful it was in all the shops, W.H. Smith and John Lewis and all that, and it's only just finished, really. I think some of them still sell in independent shops, but I don't write any more Drama Queen. I think you've seen those for the last 15 years, old-fashioned pictures with a contemporary funny byline. And then I did another one when that started to, wane a bit, called Irene and Gladys, which is two old ladies looking at works of art and sort of undercutting the sort of pomp of them by having some slightly, funny contemporary, urbane, is that the word? Take on what this work of art is. And that sells well. And then I've contributed to other ranges with Woodmanstern. And it's just kept the wool from the door, Thank God for that. In fact, I've got a meeting this very afternoon in 2 hours' time about a new range. I don't know what it is. I don't think anyone's got any ideas, but we're just going to touch base, see what we can come up with. But I think I'm led to believe that the greetings card industry has kind of stagnated. I think it's only a certain age group of people who send physical paper cards to each other. I can't imagine your age group do a lot of that. But it's sort of everyone fighting over this probably soon to be diminishing, market. But I mean, I really like it. And writing the jokes, I think really, really, this is a case of it not necessarily being the sort of thing that I would laugh at. It's kind of very, very middle of the road. You know, I like to think there's some that I've done I really think are funny. But quite often with writing, and it used to be the same with Heart. I used to write for Heart Breakfast. Your instinct to write the funniest thing you can think of is not necessarily what they need. So you need to think, well, the Great British public are not going to laugh at this fart joke, or they're going to think that's a little bit distasteful to say that about this woman's tits, or whatever, you know, whatever it is, I don't know. It might make me laugh, but this is not in John Lewis going to sell any cards. Yeah. So you have to think about that. And I always think it's a bit like the sort of humour that would happen round our Christmas table with my wider family. There were various people who were very funny in my family, but it was of a certain sort of safe ground. And I always think I tap into that sort of thing. So that's a rather long answer. But that's it, basically.
I think that's interesting though, because I guess it's a bit like being like a really good session musician who can play. You know, they have that. You know, they're in a band normally and they play a certain genre, but they can also, you know, if they need to, they can get called on to play jazz or, you know, whatever it is. Like maybe it's like a really good exercise for comedians to have to write different jokes for different tastes and different styles. Yeah. To like then help their own writing, and, you know, like to explore different avenues and stuff that they don't even necessarily find funny themselves. I think that's quite interesting.
That's right. And as I say, I used to have to do that for, you know, Loose Ends, and I did it for Steve Wright's show, and I used to do Barry on there. And Christian O'Connell's show I used to write for, and Heart Breakfast, all slightly different. So, you know, basically parameters being, how far can I push this? Is this too rude? But with particularly with Heart Breakfast, I mean, you know, write the most anodyne, vanilla shite going. So I suppose you're right. It does kind of keep the old muscle working, but that didn't half blunt my comedy brain. That it really did. I thought, this is doing me no good, making half a joke. I might have said this before as well. My friend Paul Putner, who used to be the Curious Orange in Lee and Herring years ago, he always calls it the fumes of comedy. Did I mention that last time? The fumes of comedy, where you see someone and they've written something, it's like, I can sort of see why that might be a joke, but no one's actually written the funny bit. Now, that's what it used to be like with Heart Breakfast. There's half a pun there about Britney Spears or whatever. It's not that funny, but it sounds a bit like a joke, I suppose, you know, a bit like that.